Okay, imagine this for a second. You are the ultimate rule follower. You're not just good, you are the standard for good.
The patriarch.
The patriarch of three world religions,
Yeah.
The guy who was willing to sacrifice his own son just because God asked. You spent a whole life in, total unquestioning obedience.
Right.
But then the end comes. The cosmic clock runs out. An archangel shows up to clock you out. And for the first time in your entire life, you look up and you just say, no.
It's the ultimate strike, a spiritual sit-in against death itself.
Today on the Deep Dive, we are tackling the Testament of Abraham, but not the Genesis version you might know. We were looking at what I like to call the director's cut, specifically chapters 12 through 20. And if you're just going off your standard Sunday school education, you might want to brace yourself because this text doesn't give us some pious silent saint. It gives us a stubborn negotiator, a terrifying cosmic tour, and eventually a literal monster movie.
It really is a genre-bending text. We're looking at what's known as apocryphal literature. And for those who don't, spend their weekends digging through ancient libraries, these are texts written around the same time as the Bible, but they didn't make the final cut.
They're like the deleted scenes of history.
Exactly. And this one is fascinating because it reimagines the end of life, not as this peaceful drifting away, but as a bureaucratic nightmare and a high-stakes battle of wits.
It frames death as a negotiation. And frankly, Abraham is a tough negotiator. He's filibustering his own mortality.
Which is so incredibly human.
Yeah.
But to understand why he refuses, we have to look at what he sees right before that moment. The text drops us into a scene where Abraham is on a cosmic field trip.
Field trip, I like that.
He's in a chariot with the Archangel Michael, who's called the chief captain in this text, and they arrive at the place of judgment.
This is our first big stop, the courtroom of souls. And the layout here is so specific. They see two gates.
A broad one and a narrow one.
Right, the broad gate leads to destruction, the narrow one to life. It's imagery that feels familiar, but the context is strange.
Very. Because sitting between these gates is a figure on a throne, and it's Adam, the first human.
But he's not judging anyone.
No, not at all. He's just watching. The text says he's terrified when he sees souls going through the broad gate, even pull his hair out, but then he rejoices when a few trickle through the narrow one. He's just an audience, a helpless spectator.
Which brings us to the actual judge. This was the detail that really got me. You'd expect, what, God? Maybe Michael?
Of course.
But no, the text says the judge is Abel, Adam's son.
The first murder victim in history.
That seems like a very, very specific choice.
It's a profound theological argument. The text says God wanted a three-tiered court. Abel judges first because a human should judge humans, a jury of your peers, cosmically speaking, but specifically a peer who knows what it means to have life violently stolen.
It adds this layer of raw humanity to it all. But let's talk about the bureaucracy, because it's not just Abel pointing a finger. He has a whole staff.
A terrifying staff. Angels on the right recording good deeds, angels on the left for sins. But the heavy hitters are two specific beings, Dokiel and Puril.
The descriptions here felt almost Egyptian, like something out of the Book of the Dead. Dokiel is the sun-like archangel, the weigher.
Exactly. He's got the scales. He represents the objective weight of your life. But then you have Puril.
He's the fiery and pitiless angel.
Pitiless. He holds fire in his hand to test the works of men.
That is a scary concept. The idea that if your works are, solid, they don't burn. If they're hollow, they just poof.
And Abraham is watching this assembly line of souls. The wicked go left, righteous go right. But then the system hits a glitch.
The little soul.
Yeah, a soul arrives and his sins and righteousness are perfectly equal.
The scale doesn't tip.
The fire doesn't consume him, but it doesn't clear him. He's just stuck. A bureaucratic stalemate.
And this is where Abraham's character pivots, right? Because just a few chapters earlier, he was looking down at Earth and basically acting like a sniper.
Oh, totally. Cursing sinners left and right. That guy's stealing. Let him die. They're committing adultery. Zap him.
He was trigger happy.
He was judging harder than the actual judges.
He was. But now, standing in that courtroom, seeing the pitiless angel on the fire, seeing what judgment actually looks like, something breaks in him. He gets it. He sees this middle soul stuck in limbo, and he tells Michael, let's pray for him.
The prosecutor becomes the defense attorney.
And it works. They pray, God hears them, the soul is saved. But then Abraham has this huge realization. You can see the gears turning.
He's thinking, wait, if prayer can save this guy.
What about all those people I cursed 5 minutes ago? It's this heavy wave of guilt. He realizes his own self-righteousness might have sent people to the wrong gate.
So he begs God to bring them back.
And God agrees. But in a way, that's also a bit of a rebuke. He basically says, I'm bringing them back because I don't desire the death of sinners, Abraham.
Oh. It's God showing him that divine justice is actually more merciful than human justice. Exactly. So Abraham has had his tour, he's learned his lesson, the field trip is over. Michael turns to him and says, okay, Abraham, time to go. You need to die now.
And Abraham, fresh off this whole spiritual lesson, looks the archangel right in the eye and just says, I will not go with you.
Flat refusal. Nope, not doing it.
I love how awkward this is. Michael is the chief captain of God's army. He's supposed to be this epic figure, and he's being stonewalled by an old man who just won't get in the car.
He has to go back to God and say, Lord, your friend won't die, and I can't really force him because, well, he's your friend.
So God has a problem.
Yeah.
You can't just drag the friend of God kicking and screaming into heaven. It's bad optics.
You can't use force. So God changes tactics. He needs a closer. He calls for death.
But this part is just weirdly funny. God gives Death a dress code. He doesn't just say, go get him. He gives him a makeover.
He does. He tells Death, cover your wildness, hide your corruption. He basically tells the Grim Reaper to get all dressed up. Because if Abraham sees Death's true face, he'll die of fright on the spot, and God wants a conversation.
So Death shows up looking like a supermodel angel. Sun-like, glorious robes. He walks in. Abraham thinks it's just another jest.
They sit, they chat, but Abraham gets suspicious. He finally asks, who are you?
And Death is pretty honest about it.
Surprisingly, yeah. He says, I am the bitter lot of death.
And Abraham's response is basically, no, you're not.
Total denial. He looks at this beautiful being and says, you're not death. And he repeats the mantra, I will not go with you.
It's like a comedy sketch. The text even says Death goes silent. He's stumped. No one's ever argued with the inevitable before.
But Abraham pushes it. He challenges Death. He says, if you are really Death, show me your true face.
Oh, famous last word.
Truly, Death warns him, you cannot behold my fierceness. But Abraham insists. He thinks his righteousness is a shield.
He thinks being God's friend makes him immune.
And this is where we shift genres. We leave the courtroom drama, we leave the comedy, and we enter the creature feature. Chapter 17, Death takes off the mask.
He puts on the tyrant's robe.
And the description is pure nightmare fuel. 7 fiery heads of serpents and 14 faces.
Okay, let's drill down on these faces because the list is so specific. It's not just scary face.
No, it's a taxonomy of fear. One face is fire, one is darkness, one is a viper, another is a precipice, the face of falling off a cliff.
A basilisk is in there too. A basilisk.
Basilisk, yeah. Then it gets more abstract. He has a face of a fiery scimitar, a sword-bearing face, even the face of a fierce stormy sea, and a rushing river.
So he's not just a skeleton with a scythe. He's a shapeshifter who embodies every possible way a person can be destroyed.
Drowning, burning, falling, violence. He's the sum total of human fragility, the personification of mortality and all its chaos.
And the effect is catastrophic.
Just the sight of him, 7,000 of Abraham's servants drop dead on the spot.
From just looking at him.
Instantly. Their spirits flee their bodies out of pure terror, and Abraham himself, the great patriarch, falls into a spirit failure, basically a coma of terror.
But he doesn't die.
He doesn't die. He's got that friend of God immunity. He wakes up, and the first thing he does is yell at Death.
Which is a fair question. Why'd you kill my entire household?
And Death is just like, hey, I didn't touch them. They just couldn't handle the reality of what I am.
But Abraham, being Abraham, decides to fix the mess. He prays to God, and all 7,000 servants get resurrected.
Which creates this unbelievably strange dynamic. You've got Death standing there, 7,000 resurrected people wandering around, and you're back at a stalemate. Abraham has seen the monster, but he still hasn't agreed to go.
He is just so stubborn, so he tries a new tactic, delay.
He starts interviewing him, treats him like a podcast guest.
Right. So tell me about those faces. Why a sword? Why a river?
It's a fascinating philosophical breakdown. Death explains he doesn't physically have these heads. He says, I take the shape of the way people die. If you die in a shipwreck, you see the sea. In battle, you see the sword.
He's a mirror of your fate. And then he drops this statistic I found really interesting. He says there are 72 deaths.
Right. He distinguishes between just death, which is your fixed time, and unexpected death.
What's the difference there?
Just death is when your time is up, natural causes, but the other 72 are the accidents. Stumbling, poison, serpents. It's an attempt to categorize the chaos of life.
It's just amazing. He's sitting there conducting an actuarial interview with the Grim Reaper. He is stalling for time.
Absolutely stalling. But the clock is ticking. Abraham starts complaining about feeling weak. He asks death to just leave him alone so he can rest.
Just give me 5 minutes. The universal cry.
Exactly. But in his faint state, he makes a mistake. Or maybe it's kind of surrender. He says to death, "Come, take my right hand, and let cheerfulness and life and strength come to you."
That is such a weird thing to say. Is he trying to bless death?
It's ambiguous. It could be delirium, but it backfires. The text says, "For death deceived Abraham."
The trick.
The ultimate trick. Death takes his hand, and the moment they touch, Abraham's soul adheres to the hand of death.
Like cosmic sticky
The
hand.
cosmic sticky hands. He's pulled right out of his body. He dies, not because he said yes, but because he was tricked into a handshake.
That is wild and a little disturbing. The most righteous man on earth, the guy who resurrected 7,000 people, gets taken out by a handshake prank.
It feels undignified, I know, but I think it speaks to a deeper truth the text is trying to get at, that survival instinct is the strongest force there is. Even Abraham would never have voluntarily let go.
He would have argued forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
So the only way for God to bring him home was to, well, trick him out of his body. It reframes death as something so alien to our nature that we almost have to be tricked into it.
You can't just rationalize your way into accepting it.
Exactly. And notice what happens immediately after. The horror movie ends. Michael and the angels arrive instantly. They wrap his soul in divine woven linen. They use perfumes. They sing hymns.
The full VIP treatment.
Immediately, he's carried up to paradise. The struggle is over. The fear was real. The monster was real. But the destination was peace.
It's quite a journey, from a courtroom to mercy to terror, and finally a trick. It's a whole arc from judgment to horror to, well, a kind of forced acceptance.
And it validates the fear of death in a way few religious texts do. It says it's okay to be afraid. Even Abraham was terrified. Even Abraham fought it. It makes the saint human.
It makes him relatable. He's not some statue. He's a guy who just really didn't want the ride to end.
And in the end, God's mercy wasn't in giving him more life on earth, but in finding a way, even a tricky way, to finally bring him peace.
So here's a final thought for us to chew on as we wrap this up. We often think of faith as total submission, right? As letting go. But in this text, the hero fights to stay alive with every breath. If even the friend of God had to be tricked into letting go. Is our fear of death actually a flaw? Or is that stubborn refusal to quit exactly what makes us human?
That is the question. Perhaps the fight to stay is the most sacred thing we have.
Thanks for diving deep with us into the Testament of Abraham, who knew ancient theology involved so much paperwork and so many serpents. We'll catch you on the next one.